Welcome back, everyone. It is April 29th, 2020, and we are 6 weeks into the worldwide coronavirus pandemic.
Has it been 6 weeks?
6 weeks, maybe 7, something like that. When did it?
When did we lock down? Because we did an open house, right, in Islip,
So it was
Walnut.
Sunday, March 14th, I believe.
Sunday, March 14th. So we're
Yes.
literally a month and a half in. And based on what we're hearing, this is going to go for a little while longer. The last thing I heard Cuomo talking about was the 15th, he's going to start relaxing restrictions on upstate New York, right?
That's what I heard. I didn't. That was through the grapevine. I heard.
So that's upstate New York. Now,
Yes.
downstate, Westchester, New York City, Long Island, probably June 1st.
Well, this is just speculation. I could see there seems to be like a 3 to 4 phase approach for most politicians that are putting stuff out there. So I could see upstate, rural areas, May 15th, suburbs, maybe June 1st.
And that's just starting to get back to it. That's not getting back to it.
Well, that's still with heavy restrictions. So there's still going to be, even once it's opened up, there's going to be social distancing rules. You must wear a mask. His executive order, you have to wear some type of face covering or face mask if you're over the age of 2. But anyway, just to finish and then I could see phase 3 being like the urban areas, like the city and things like that. I mean, that's speculation, but yeah. So I think at least for us on Long Island, we're probably looking at another month. We're probably looking at June 1st. And that would be...
And that's when they start phase 1.
For Long Island.
So I've talked to a bunch of people who are much older than us, been there, done that. Nothing like this has ever happened before.
No.
In their lifetime.
No.
They haven't seen it. They don't understand it. They have no idea where things are going. Very interesting times.
The closest thing from the people I've spoke with, the closest thing that they can relate it to is 9/11 in the sense that in New York, so this isn't worldwide or countrywide, but it's just New York, things just shut down. Like for that week, everything shut down. No one was doing anything, but that wasn't because everyone was forced to shut down like they are now. It was just everyone was in a state of shock. But so that's really doesn't compare at all, but that's the closest anyone can give to a comparison.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. I mean, for me, it was like okay for the first few weeks, and now, I mean, the amount, the things I'm doing to keep myself busy is basically spending money and eating. That's it. That's all I've been doing. I buy the worst food at the store. If you go into my house right now, there's boxes of goldfish, bagged chips all over the house, cup of ramen noodle,
yes,
which
those are good.
Which is a good throwback to college. I mean, it's literally like it's just food that lasts forever because you go to Costco and that's what's there. And by the way, since this whole thing began, I was at Costco this past week and there is still no toilet paper. What is it about toilet paper, by the way? What is it about people needing or wanting toilet paper? Of all the things in the grocery store, of all the things, toilet paper.
It's a chain effect. So once a few people start hoarding it, everyone else just follows suit because they're like, well, if I don't start hoarding it, I'm not going to have any. And it's just this crazy chain reaction. I don't know how that became the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I understand it. People don't want to live without it. It's just wild.
I actually have a few buddies in the city who got down to one roll. Yeah. And it was a problem. But it's a good thing that one of my buddy's fathers actually works for the supermarket, and he had the in on toilet paper. So he got himself a nice little pack of TP. But yeah, this is just nuts. I mean, the thing I miss the most about normal life is probably the gym. I mean, I got up not every morning, but at some point in the day, I got in my car. I would go to the gym. I would get my 1 hour workout in, and in this new gym, there was a hot tub.
Mhm.
And I had like just discovered like getting in the gym, getting your workout in, getting your blood flowing, and then immediately after your workout, go and get in the hot tub for
Mhm.
15 minutes, which was like a game changer for me. And now it's all taken away.
Yeah.
So my next purchase, honestly,
It's gonna be a hot tub.
I was considering it.
You should. You have, I mean, you have the space for it, the
Where
yard
the hell would I put it?
on the
I
I
mean,
mean, you have what do you mean? Pick a
I feel
spot.
like if I'm gonna get a hot tub though, I just gotta do the pool. What's the point in buying a hot tub when you could just put in a pool
Well, that's true. You can buy a hot tub or you could put in like the pool with
with
the
the hot
spa
tub?
attached.
But who's I'm not spending $100,000 right now. It's just not
Well,
happening.
maybe wait a couple months and who knows? I mean, these you might be able to get a pool at 50% off because no one's putting in a pool or people out of work, labor's cheap. Yeah, I mean, who knows? So, but yeah.
I mean, since this thing started, I've purchased 3 GoPros, which GoPro is amazing, by the way. I don't know if people really understand how easy GoPros are and how awesome they are. So back in the day when I got married, like 6, 7 years ago, I bought a Hero 3,
Hmm.
and it was a very difficult device because you would start recording it. You didn't know what you were exactly recording, and then you would bring it back and it would be clunky, and the way you had to like transfer the files and everything was difficult, and the videos were very jumpy and bouncy. But so I recently looked into the Hero 8 and I bought one, and they're like they've perfected it. They've got everything records in 4K if you wanted to. It's the easiest thing to put together. There's a screen on it now, so you could see what you're recording. They have all
Hmm.
these accessories and add-ons that, if you're doing a vlog and the camera's looking at you, there's a screen so you could see what you're looking at. Um, a- and it's so easy to travel with. I mean,
Hmm.
so what I've been doing is I've been taking the GoPro and I've been using it to basically record things with my family, playing
Hmm.
with it, right? Like the kids, we would bring them to the beach, we would bring them to Concept Park, whatever it may be, and I've been playing with it. But the 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 video that it spits out is crisp, it's beautiful, it captures everything that you want it to capture, and it actually streams right to the app on your phone. So you could record a video, hit stop recording the video, and it pushes it right to your
Hmm.
cell phone. It's probably the best vlogging device that exists right now. I don't think there's anything better. And I advise anybody who's looking to do any kind of web content that they should 100% go get it, because it's really good. And it's even good for the purpose of recording stuff with your family, because the one thing about the cell phone, it's great and all, and it's easy and it's quick, but I don't like that it's vertical instead of horizontal,
Hmm.
the video.
Yeah.
There's something about that bothers me. It's not cinematic.
Well, and it what's it called? The feature, if you're moving around, it's bumpy, whereas it's all smooth. It's on like
Hyper
a.
smooth. It's called hyper smooth. So it's this technology that they built into the GoPro,
Mhm.
and what it does is it's a gyroscope for the lens. So or a what do they call a gimbal for the lens?
Yes,
I'm
yeah, there
sorry, a
you go.
gimbal, and um, it keeps it level. So like I give it to my daughter,
Mhm.
and my daughter runs around with it because she watches YouTube videos now, which is funny. Like that whole, like the kids of today, they don't watch TV. They're on YouTube, and the
Mhm.
things that come out of her mouth, like she'll say something and she'll be like, "All right, guys, subscribe and hit the like button and comment." She's like, "Comment down below."
She doesn't really know what she's saying,
Well,
but
she knows what she's saying. That's
yeah,
the thing. Because she's on YouTube all the time, so
yeah.
she knows that, like, supposedly YouTube gives out awards to
Mhm.
people who have big followings, and one of them's like a silver subscribe button. They
Mhm.
send it to you like a trophy,
Mhm.
and another one's a gold subscribe button when you hit another milestone.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Daddy, I really want the gold subscribe
How
button."
many?
So
Do you know how many followers you need for that?
I don't know. No idea. But if somebody look, if I could have the time to cut all the videos that my daughter puts together, we'd probably get a little following.
The
It,
the nicest feature I think is the one that streams it to your phone because that just makes it easy to post. right?
Mhm.
If you have to sit down and transfer it from the GoPro to a computer and then go from a computer, that's a pain in the ass. If it's just on your phone and you can just quickly move that to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you want, that's
It's
nice.
easily the coolest tool um, that I ever bought. That's why I bought 3 of them. Yeah. So, GoPro was one purchase. We just purchased my wife a new car, which the reason I bring it up. So traditionally, I always just went to the dealerships, right?
Hmm.
You go from one Ford dealership to the next Ford dealership to the next Ford dealership,
Hmm.
and you're comparing who's giving you better
Yeah.
prices, right? My buddy in the city recommended that I look into this car broker, a friend of his.
Hmm.
So brokers are very different than car dealers. So, and apparently there's 2 ways that car dealerships make money. I could be speaking out of school, could be completely
Yeah.
wrong, but this is how it was explained to me.
Hmm.
So the first way car dealerships make money is every car they sell, right? They'll
Hmm.
mark up every car they sell and they'll make a little margin on each one, and that's how
Yeah.
they pay the bills. The second way they do it is volume dealers. So let's say a volume dealer has to sell, for argument's sake, 100 cars off of a lot in a month
Hmm.
to get whatever bonus they're allotted at that number. So let's say the month is coming near end,
Hmm.
right? And they need to sell their 100 cars and they've sold 95.
Hmm.
And different car brokers bring them people who are looking to lease a car and they get a discount. The long
Yeah.
and short of it is you could save $100 to $150 off of a monthly lease eh,
Because
on any car.
it's because the broker basically knows which they basically shop around. So what you're saying is the broker, they have relationships with all the dealers and they'll know, which dealers are paid by what method. And they know who the volume dealers are and they'll contact them, find which ones are a little short and say, hey, I have someone, just give me a deal on the car
So,
and we'll get you to your
so,
quota.
so to give you an example, the car that we got, I was quoted from a dealer $10,000 more for a model
Hmm.
that was $10,000 less in MSRP.
Hmm.
So there's a $20,000 spread
Hmm.
in what I would have paid to what I actually am paying
Yeah.
for the car.
It's pretty crazy.
You're not kidding. And it's funny. The broker gave me this sheet. It was like a spec sheet on like the different models and what the suggested MSRPs are. It's like
Hmm.
the inside sheet on that particular model car. Um, and when I sent it to the dealer, because I
Hmm.
asked the dealer for a quote, and they said, "Where are you getting these numbers? This is
Hmm.
not right. I'm trying to earn your business and blah blah blah, all the bullshit, right?"
Hmm.
So I sent him the spec sheet that had the prices and all the features, and he literally was just like, he didn't respond, never responded. So
How's the broker make money though? Do you know?
the broker makes some, I don't know. I mean, the broker's making something, but it just goes to show how much a car dealership is making. Think about it. If you own a car dealership, you're leasing a car. Part of the profit that they make on that car pays for the salesman, pays for the secretary that's there, pays for the real estate to hold all the cars
Hmm.
on the lot,
Yeah.
right? It pays for all that stuff.
Yeah.
So this dealer, this broker, he's got no office space. He's just pushing paper. He's got the client. He
Yeah.
brings the client to the dealer, and he puts the transaction together with a volume dealer who isn't trying to mark anything up, and for some reason or another, he's getting deals that are $100 to $150 less per month in a lease.
Mm.
It's insane.
Yeah, the
And
car.
this, and as far as servicing the car, all the same. It's all through Ford. That's why if you go to a dealership
Hmm.
and there's the sales side and there's the service side, they're
Hmm.
two different businesses. They might be operating in the same building. They might be
Yes.
owned by the same
Yes.
person,
Yeah. Yeah.
two different
Yeah.
businesses. So if I bring my Ford to the dealer to get it serviced,
Hmm.
they treat it the same way as if I bought it from that exact dealer,
Yes.
which is it makes it the most ridiculous thing. The other thing about the whole process, this is the part that had me like a little weary.
Hmm.
I never spoke to the broker on the phone. It was all done through text message and email.
But it was through a referral too,
And
wasn't
I
it?
never saw the car
Oh, that's so you bought a car without seeing it?
without seeing it.
That's crazy. I don't think I could do that. But
No, so I thought the same thing.
mhm.
I never saw the car I was getting, but I knew the exact car I was getting. And I went to a dealer and I just looked at it. And then the car showed up brand new. Because think about it, if you're leasing a car and
Mhm.
it's brand new anyway,
Yeah.
they're all the same.
I still feel like you wanna see it.
I know. That's why the whole process was so screwed up. It goes against everything that you would feel comfortable with,
Mhm.
but it was the best decision I ever made.
That's so that
Dude, and literally, it just gets dropped off at your door.
oh, really?
I didn't go get it. It came from Jersey.
So it brings up a good segue into just how with what's going on, how things are changing, and same with the real estate market, which I want to get back to other stuff, but just to incorporate it.
Oh yeah.
If you asked me a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, the beginning of March, would anyone ever buy a house without seeing it? I would say no way. But we're seeing people now. We have both buyers and sellers doing virtual tours, whether it be through FaceTime, a Zoom meeting, Matterport, which is like Google Earth inside the house, right? We're seeing people actually request this stuff. Can I view the house that way? And then we're having people actually make offers.
Mhm.
And it's mind blowing to me. But I guess the moral of the story is life must go on. People adapt.
Life's gonna go on. Things are gonna change. So, I mean, if we're talking about real estate in general, I mean, okay, I don't even know where to begin because there's so much to discuss around this pandemic and what it's going to do to life in the future and how it compares to life leading up to this. But I think it all looks totally different. I think, I mean, just for the sake of Long Island, if we're going to talk about Long Island, right? The large majority of Nassau County residents, especially the people on, in Western Nassau County, they live there to commute to the city,
Mm-hmm.
right? How many people are going to want to get on a train, use mass transit anymore, get to Manhattan, where it's
That,
a petri dish, and that's why it spread the way it did. I mean, do you understand why it spread, right? Supposedly, the guy in New Rochelle, okay, who the reason there was a breakout in New Rochelle before there was a breakout in New York City, from what
mm-hmm.
they're saying, he commuted to the city. So
Mm-hmm.
he would get on the train every morning, commute to the city. He went to a bat mitzvah. There was a 2-week incubation period for him where he was contagious. That he was on the train back and forth to Manhattan
Mm-hmm.
every day and went to like a bat mitzvah with 500 people, and then it just exploded in New Rochelle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the mass transit, it's the congestion of people, it's the office space, right? So how is it all going to change, right? I, I I listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of YouTube videos about these things of people with different opinions and stuff, but people who have very valuable opinions. And what a lot of them talk about with regards to businesses is it's going to be interesting when lawyers get involved to people going back to work. So if you're an employee for a company and you go to work in the city
Mm-hmm.
because it's time to get back to work and your employer mandates that you get back to work, like, hey, we're business as usual, get
Mm-hmm.
in. Um, what's the liability there, right? Do you have liability making your employees go to work if there's an outbreak in your office? What does that do to you and your company? Can a lawsuit against you
Mm-hmm.
put your company under? Furthermore, what does an outbreak in the office do to productivity? There's a cost to that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're a business owner and you're operating business as usual right now, right, virtually, because
Mm-hmm.
everyone's moved to a virtual model, and there's actually studies out there right now that say that that people are spending 3 more hours working virtually from home than they did in the office.
I
which
could see
is
that.
very interesting. So you've basically uprooted everybody out of the office because of the pandemic, and you've moved them home, and now you've set up business as usual.
Hmm.
Let's say you uproot them back out of their house and move them to the office,
Hmm.
and there's an outbreak. Now there's another cost to cost financially and of their productivity to get them back up and out of that office
Hmm.
and back home, right? So are people going to stop and think of these things and say, we're not doing that anymore. We're not going to have a city office anymore. We're not going to commute. And if that becomes a trend, because they say the likelihood that this thing's not going away.
No.
They think of vaccines 18 months out, 12 to 18 months out.
And even if you have a vaccine, I mean, there's a flu vaccine. Still, how many
And
people each year get the flu?
exactly. So this may be a new normal for us. It's very possible that things that we're not going to get our hands wrapped around this thing for a while. And even if we had a vaccine, let's say best case scenario of a vaccine in 18 months,
Hmm.
and we never hear of coronavirus again after 18 months, businesses will adapt before that 18-month marker
Yes.
to the new normal, whatever that is, because they can't afford to not adapt before an 18-month period.
This
Right?
is, yeah, listen, I think the bottom line is this: the coronavirus is going to change the way society functions.
But what's that going to do to where people want to live on Long Island?
So I,
If let's say you live in Garden City,
hmm,
$1 million cape
hmm,
in Garden City, small house, three
hmm,
bedroom, two bath. That same $1 million, another half an hour east, and the only reason you were living there is because of the commute,
hmm.
will buy you an acre of land, 3,000 square foot house
Hmm.
with 4 or 5 beds. So what are people going to do?
So yeah, listen, it's going to change things in that a lot of businesses they've already realized it is we can be just as productive having employees work remotely. We don't need to have them in the office, and with technology nowadays they have the capability to work remotely. So for a lot of people it will cause them to move out of the city
Mm-hmm.
and move to more, the people in the urban areas will move to more suburban areas. Maybe you see some migration from suburban to urban areas. From a work standpoint, yes, you're going to see that. But there's still things that the urban lifestyle offers that the suburban lifestyle doesn't. And there's still things, even different areas of suburbia, so different areas of Long Island, there's a different lifestyle in Garden City as opposed to Middle Island, right? Or
Yeah,
something like that. So
totally.
so from a work perspective, you're going to see a lot of people saying, well, maybe we don't need to live in this area. But from a lifestyle perspective, they may still like that lifestyle.
Oh
And so
yeah.
they may still want to live there. Now, also from a lifestyle perspective, it may be, if your concern is about catching coronavirus, you may want to live in a more, in an area where things are more spread out. You're going to see a lot of migration for sure. It really, we have to see how things play out. There's so much unknown around this, but it does make sense logically that you would see people move from more condensed areas to more,
Yeah,
spread out areas.
the official term is deurbanization.
Yes.
We've been using that with our team, talking to them about it, but that could very much be a reality. I mean, maybe they move out to the Hamptons, right? Maybe they go to the Hamptons, maybe they go to Florida. I
Yeah. I
mean,
mean, you can move out of state for sure.
we have a friend who's trying to get to Florida.
Hmm.
you know, it's what it is, and he's a New York City resident since, for what, the past 10 years,
Yeah. 10, 12, maybe 12 years.
10, 12 years. So there's going to be a lot of changes, man. And
But
then there's the question of, with Cuomo and the state
mhm.
being broke, what is going to happen to the taxes in the state?
Well, that's a different conversation. So there's the coronavirus conversation, and then there's just the conversation of politics and policy within different states, like a Florida, for instance, which has no state income tax, and in New York. So we'll have to see how it plays out with that. I think a lot of states are in financial trouble. Um, I-
Broke,
yes,
broke.
yes, exactly. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But for sure, I mean,
How
just
could you how could you raise taxes on someone who lives in New York City right now? Who's they're basically going to be giving up 60 cent 55 60 cents on every dollar.
well,
A
I mean,
high
New York
income
City.
earner.
Think about the tax revenue New York City contributes to the state just from sales of goods, tourism, all those things. Even once you open the economy, that stuff isn't bouncing back. Tourism in New York City is not bouncing back like it was in February of 2020 and prior. I'd have to imagine sales like restaurants, things like that, all of those businesses are going to be much slower. So there's going to be a problem. They're already in financial trouble. New York
Right.
State needs a
So
bailout, and now you're not going to have the tax revenues at what they were. So there's going to be issues for
so
sure.
so so there's no money coming in.
Hmm.
They're spending all this money fighting the virus. And then they're going to, once this gets a little eradicated and the summer rolls around, they're going to spend money in the summer to prepare for
Hmm.
the next wave. Okay. And the people aren't going to, I don't believe, although there's that article about the Texas restaurant with the 3 hour wait,
Hmm.
but I don't believe people are just going to be running back to life as usual. I
Well,
think.
also, so you have to. It's funny. These articles, these headlines, you read them, and then there's always a story behind it, right? So, for instance, you see a headline: Texas restaurant opens to 3 hour waits, and it makes it sound like people are just rushing back in droves, which may be the case. I don't know, but then you have to consider, right? The restaurant has now implemented new rules: no parties of six or more. You have to have social distancing. So the restaurant where their capacity used to be 100 people, now maybe it's only 50, right? Maybe they have to have less wait staff, less chefs in the kitchen because they don't want people on top of each other. So then you think, well, all right, they normally can hold 100 people. So if there would have been an hour wait, now they can hold 50. Now it's a 2 hour wait. Normally they have three chefs in the kitchen and six waiters. Now they have one chef and three waiters, right? So the service has slowed. So now that normal 1 hour wait has become 3 hours. And it's not because it's any busier with the number of people. It's just because things have changed. So I don't know that that's the case. I'm just making a point
That's a good point.
in that everyone's always
Here's the thing though, can the restaurant pay their bills running at 50% capacity?
I don't know. It depends on the financials of that
Probably
restaurant.
not,
Well,
right?
they have to raise prices maybe
Or they maybe have to consolidate their space, right?
or lay off some staff. Well, here, let me take it back because we're getting. I want to know first
We're
of
in the
all,
rabbit hole.
going into this, going into the pandemic, what was your mindset when they first shut things down? For me, it was so when they first announced, listen, we're gonna New York on lockdown May 15th, and it was like a 2 week thing, and then Trump announced 15-day. It was I forget the exact slogan, but it was like 15-day pause of social distancing for the country. When they first did that, I was like, okay, I think everyone thought, fine, 15 days, let's wrap our heads around this. That was when the media hype from what was going on in Italy was was at 100,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of panic. And so everyone, I think my thought process was okay, fine. Then when it got extended to May 15th, I was like, all right, what's another 2 weeks? A month is nothing crazy. Let's figure it out. But now, oh, sorry, that was so March 15th to April. Then it got extended to April 15th. But now it's at the point where everything is settled down. You can kind of start thinking about things rationally. There's not, you can take a step back. And in hindsight, the whole thing to me was just crazy. If you want to do a 2 week pause, fine. But after that, there was no plan. They never paused and said, okay, we're going to pause and shut things down. And then how are we going to open things back up? Like once it was just, they were just reacting without thinking. And now the deadline, the deadline to open things back up is coming, and you realize there's no plan on how to open things. They never thought, okay, if we shut things down to stop the spread, like, will we have a vaccine or a cure by May 15th? Probably not. So then really,
What was the point of shutting down
what
at
is, but
all?
yeah, well, when are we going to have that? Well, we'll probably have that in 12 to 18 months. Okay, well, can we stay shut down for 12 to 18 months? No, we can't. So why are we shutting down for this extended period of time in the first place? Is there another strategy that we can maybe take where it would make more sense? Because at this point, you're just delaying the inevitable now of you can't stay shut down for 12 to 18 months. You have to open up at some point. So you're just delaying the inevitable spread of this virus everywhere. Whereas if you would have taken those first 2 weeks to actually come up with a plan of, okay, we can't stay shut down until there's a vaccine or until there's a cure. We have another month or a month and a half, because that was really the 15 days ended kind of April 1st. And now in New York, we're shut down to May 15th at least. So let's take the next month and a half to figure out a plan of how we can actually open things back up and not make it as devastating as it is. And there's really no good option. It's
So the whole reason for the shutdown was because of the rush in the hospitals. That's it.
but and that was a rush based on just economic models and a lot of
No,
panic
based
of
on
what's coming out of
based
Italy.
on what happened in Italy.
Yes.
So in Italy, which I don't know enough about their health system and anything that happens there, but they had a rush in their hospitals where they were deciding who lives and who dies, who they're
Hmm.
going to treat and who they're not. If you were older, they're not going to treat you. If you're younger, they're not going to treat you. So now, if you're younger, they're going to treat you.
Hmm.
So that's why this whole thing shut down. If if the if the R naught or whatever that was, right? The
Hmm.
ability for the virus to spread, if that wasn't so strong or so high, then this would not have happened. It's the same reason that these other viruses that we've had in the past, you know, H1N1 and all these other pandemics that we've seen in the past. The big thing with this is the hospitals weren't prepared. It's impossible for hospitals to prepare,
Hmm.
um, and that's why it all shut down. Now, when this all first started, uh, I mean, I think honestly, I think they're doing the best that they're making the best decisions right now for what they need to do with regards to safety for as many people as possible. The only reason we're opening up is because the quote unquote curve is back on the decline and we're approaching summer. If this went down in in like October, November,
Hmm.
we'd be shut down, I think, for the whole winter.
But is that even the right move? Right?
I don't know.
You have a country like Sweden, which apparently didn't shut down. And it's not the same, obviously. You have to compare population density and all sorts of different factors, just lifestyle. But that didn't shut down. And apparently they're doing fine. My whole issue with this is that there's no like control group. In any experiment, you have a control group. Okay, well, let's shut down. You can't do this, but right, just to make an example, let's shut down half of New York City. The other half, let's not shut down. Let's see if it actually benefits to even shut. Let's see if shutting down benefits
Well,
it.
they're basically doing that just in a bigger model, right? Because New York City is bordered by Jersey and Connecticut,
Hmm.
and I think all the governors have different plans as to how they want to reopen, right?
But no one even, my point is, no one even knows what we're dealing with. No one even knows the true numbers of how many people have the disease. So Cuomo, I think in New York,
They're saying it's higher
there's
than
yeah,
what they
in New York
actually
they've
originally
tested like
thought.
a few 100,000 people have positive, but then based on the antibody testing done in New York, and this is from Cuomo, like almost 14% of the population has antibodies, which means they've had it,
So
which I mean the numbers are really upwards of 2 million. So no one knows what they're dealing with. No one knows the real numbers, which means you
no.
can't calculate the real death rate. No one even knows what this disease is exactly, because
Here's where
it's
I'll challenge that though.
go
And this
ahead.
is what I don't understand and why no one's explained this, right? So like they say that that a lot more people have the antibodies and have been exposed to the virus than what we know. Correct?
Yes.
If that's the case, then why was there just a rush on the hospitals in the last few months?
I think a lot of it was, I mean, I don't know. It could be speculation, right? I'll take the side of this conversation in that I'm very cynical of the hype and the panic that the media is creating, and then also of our leadership and how they're reacting to it. And I'm not, that's
Well, there's politics in here too, right?
definitely.
So don't forget, the reason that Trump is leaving it up to the states as to when they go back to life as usual,
Mhm.
part of it is true that every little corner of our country is having a different experience with this thing,
Yes.
but he does not want to put his name on going back to normal
Mhm.
and a catastrophe
Well, I think the
from a
state should take
resurgence.
responsibility. I mean, the government, in my opinion, government has become way too big. The fact that they can just shut everything down and that people just abide by it is very scary to me. They have a lot of power, but also the states should hold some power. For one reason is that yes, economic New York is different than Idaho, so there shouldn't be a blanket rule for sure. But also, I mean, that's the way, and I'm not like a constitutional expert. That's the way that the United States and the Constitution was designed to prevent the federal government from having this authoritarian overall power over things. So I think that's smart by him. While it is maybe smart from a political standpoint, I think that's the way it should be. Um,
I mean, look, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is here. I don't think anybody does.
no, but
I
I just don't agree with the fact that the government has it. People need to take responsibility. Like you mentioned before, someone's going to go back to work, they're going to get sick, and they're going to sue their employer. This is crazy to me. People have to stop being so dependent and acting like the victim, because it's just going to be like the detriment to society. It's listen, if you're not comfortable going back to work, go get a new job, go find a job, go start your own business from home, go find the job that you're comfortable doing. Don't go back, knowing the risks that you could get it, because everyone knows about coronavirus, and then all of a sudden blame the employer and sue and try to get money. I mean, it's just crazy to me.
But what about so I agree with a lot with what you're saying, but what about the person that has been working at the hospital the last 30 years? They've got maybe another 5 to 8 years left before they retire.
Hmm.
And they have terrible asthma
Yeah, I mean,
and they can't do their job at home.
so obviously maybe there needs to be
Exactly.
there
So
maybe needs to be some type of assistance, but if that creates some chain effect where you know we're returning to like a
problem is
socialist
you
country.
can't give to one and not give to all. But so this PPP program, right?
Hmm.
Why are companies like Shake Shack getting $10 million or whatever it was, or $9 million to when they probably have billions of cash reserves on their books?
I don't think any company should be bailed out. First of all, it,
The airlines is another one. You know what? You know what the biggest surprise to me was with all this? How quickly everybody goes out of business if
because
everything
because
stops.
no one acts, or not everyone. There are a lot of businesses that are going to be fine. That
Yeah, but Mike, 30 days.
no,
30 days an airline can't stay afloat
because
before
they
they
act
start
irresponsibly. They know they'll get a bailout. They spent, what is it? They've spent like 95% of their cash reserves on stock buybacks, right? And now they need a bailout. Well, how about you sell the stocks, or how about instead of spending all that money, you have some savings for a raining day?
there's no buyer for the stock.
Oh, they'll sell just at a discount. The stock market's still trading every day. So the point is, everyone knows they'll get a bailout, or they just expect, if things get tough, I'm going to go crying to
Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam, or what's the word, daddy, quote unquote, and I'm just going to ask for money. But that's not healthy for the economy, and that's an issue I actually have with Trump. And is that, listen, you've elected president to do what's right for America. You shouldn't be signing these bailouts. You say, listen, this is crazy.
You're a
This
true
is socialist.
capitalist.
Yeah, this is
You
socialist
are a
behavior.
true capitalist.
You know what this will claim bankruptcy, restructure your debt in a responsible way. Learn next time you're not going to get bailed out, so save some money. I mean, that's the responsible thing, because this path we're going down, there's no turning
So
back.
I would say you're correct and you're right. But these things didn't happen recently. This goes back to like the 80s and the 90s.
Correct. Well, in 2008 there was bailouts, but that's why everyone now knows that this is what's going to happen.
So what's happened is this is the history of it. So Paul Volcker in 1980 was the last good Federal Reserve chairman in a lot of people's eyes, in that he didn't he did the unpopular thing, right? Paul Volcker raised interest rates. He did what you're saying. He let people fail. He let people feel pain, and we came out of his term in being the Federal Reserve chairman in a very good position. If you spoke to your friend back then, they had a lot of cash in the bank. They owned assets. They
were responsible.
They were responsible. It was a very different time, right? Then what happened was Alan Greenspan became the Federal Reserve chairman, and he, over the course of a very long time, followed by Bernanke and Janet Yellen, they lowered interest rates, and they, together with politicians, started to create a different way of life in America, where instead of spending what you had saved in the bank, you spent what you made every month.
Yes.
Right? So if you were making, for argument's sake, $10,000 a month, you spent $10,000 a month. That's what you said you can afford. That's what you felt you could afford.
You took on debt, and then you made and then it was debt in the amount of where it equaled up to $10,000 a month in payments.
Yeah, people. That's why they call it paycheck to paycheck, because the paycheck comes in and it's already accounted for before it comes in, and that's what not just we did, but that's what these corporations did, and everybody. That's why cash flow in a corporation should be such that if something shuts down, you have 12 months cash flow in the bank. But there's people going under after 30 days
because no one
of
planned.
no cash flow.
No one planned for a rainy day.
It's insane to me.
And it's not going to. So with all these bailouts,
here's a question: does America learn from this?
No. If there's these bailouts, they don't, because guess what? They're just now they're just getting money. I mean, they're getting $1,200 checks. They're talking about passing more, where each person over 16 is going to get $2,000 plus $1,000 per kid. Everyone gets unemployment.
Pelosi's talking about like a long-term, just literally paying people monthly.
And because Trump wants to get reelected, he's signing off on all this, when in my opinion, the right thing to do is say, listen, this might not be the popular decision and a lot of people might suffer, but this is not a behavior that we should adapt. There needs to be a contraction. People in business need to learn they're not just going to be bailed out.
If he allows that to happen, he doesn't get reelected.
Well, also, that's the other thing. They should have never had the power to shut things down in the first place, right? They caused this problem, so now they feel that they need to provide a solution. The whole way they responded to this has just caused a lot of issues, and it's not getting better. And from my standpoint, my perspective is it's a very slippery slope. Once you start handing out money, you can't be that. There's no politician that's going to take it away. No. Right? Because that's political suicide. You're not going to say, listen, it's over, we're putting an end to this. You won't get reelected.
It's going to continue.
But that's where the citizens, the people, need to act responsibly and vote not for the free money, but for the politician that's actually going to act responsibly. But I mean, what are the chances of that happening?
No, everyone's going to get everyone wants their free lunch.
I mean, now, and listen,
but the problem is there is no free lunch. But what you're saying is right. If we don't learn from these mistakes, we're going to end up back in this position, and nothing's going to change. And the only way for people to learn from these mistakes is to let them feel pain.
Yeah, and the other thing is you can't bail out forever. We're inflating this bubble. America doesn't have unlimited cash. A lot of people think, oh, you could just print money. It's fine. All right, you could print money up to a certain point, but at a certain point, that money is going to become worthless. America has debt to other countries. Other countries are not going to accept just this paper money that keeps getting printed.
It's very interesting because the process of printing money in America is that the way it works is, I think the Treasury issues bonds and the Fed buys them, or it's the other way around. And then they sell them on the open market to foreign countries, because of the petrodollar, right? So if you're in another part of the country, I'm sorry, not another part of the country, another part of the world. So if you're in another part of the world, you have to convert your euro to the American dollar to conduct business in oil and gas, et cetera.
Hmm.
And that's why we are the world's reserve currency. Now, if why would someone buy an American bond if the interest rate and their return on that money becomes negative, right? So the Federal Reserve actually today at 2 o'clock is going to be announcing what they're going to be doing with interest rates. But there's always been a lot of talk, and Trump has actually talked a lot about going to negative interest rates. If you're a foreign country, why would you buy our bonds if they're yielding negative? So if you buy our bond and the bond matures in 5 years and you gave me $100 and in 5 years I'm giving you back 95, why would you do that? Right.
I don't know. I would think you wouldn't.
So that's why interest rates really can't go negative. They have to sort of go up a little bit if we can get them up, but they tried getting them up a year
Hmm.
and a half ago and the stock market crashed.
Well, because they've been manipulating it since 2008. They've been manipulating rates and essentially, that's the whole thing. Once you start these practices, it's the same thing
You
with
can't
rates.
go
Once you
backwards.
start manipulating, you can't go backwards. If you do, at some point, everyone's got to feel the pain. You can't avoid that forever,
No,
right?
can't.
We avoided since 2008 by manipulating interest rates, quantitative easing, printing a lot of money. Now we're avoiding it by printing a ton of money, bailing everyone out. But at some point, that has to end, and you're just delaying the inevitable of that pain. And ultimately, the pain is going to be much, much worse than had, say, this probably goes way back before '08, but '08, of just, okay, let's let things contract. Let's teach, let's let people and companies realize that they're not going to be bailed out. They have to act responsibly. They can't just live off cash flow. They have to make sure they have reserves for a rainy day, because someday there will be a rainy day for whatever reason, whether it be natural disaster, Mother Nature, virus, just economically, war, whatever.
Mhm,
But that's never happened.
mhm.
And now we're just continuing the trend. And it's really, in my opinion, the politicians. I mean, they're the ones implementing these policies, and they're doing it because they want to get reelected, and they
It's
want to
amazing.
they want to do what's
That's the most
popular and what's
amazing.
easy.
That's the most amazing part about it is you're making decisions that are going to be very bad for the country in the long term so that you could get elected in the next few months.
And then Trump, I don't know this, but his
But
thought process
it's not
is
just Trump. I'm
it's everyone.
a Trump supporter, but it's the whole system.
It's the whole system. Well, it's the people, and that's why people need to vote for. I don't know, like maybe at the end, maybe this year presidential election, vote for the Libertarian. I don't know. You know what I mean? But people
I
need to
hear
vote.
you.
The whole
So
system's
here's the
not
deal.
broke.
Who's going to vote for the hard way?
I would.
You would.
I will actually.
You will. However, do you really think the masses? Everybody wants Bernie Sanders. It's a free, that's where we're headed.
Hmm. Well, at some point,
Free, easy bailout, money, cash. Thank you. Like no one in there. The large majority of America is not voting for someone who's going to tighten things up and let things play out the way they're supposed to. That's the problem.
yes, which means the whole system's broken. Listen,
Well, if we stay the reserve currency and that never changes, then this can theoretically go on.
yes, but you can't. At some point, again,
But what's going to happen?
there's a breaking point.
Well, what's going to happen is this: there's going to be a huge wealth gap because as you keep printing money and doing all this stuff, the haves get very wealthy. The have-nots lose. They're what they have gets devalued, which
Hmm.
is very little to nothing. So if it doesn't happen globally, we're gonna have a situation internally in our country where the wealth gap is going to be so big it's going to be a problem. There's probably going to be some kind of
At,
redistribution of wealth at some point.
at some point, there's a breaking point, and then there's going to be no way to fix it.
Yeah, I don't know. So I mean, looking forward though, I think with regards to business and commerce in general, I think, we're going to be, I think we're going to get back to the new normal, which is not going to be normal, but the new normal, whatever that is, mid to late summer. And then depending upon what happens with this virus in the fall to the winter, depends upon what happens going forward. I mean, because if there's another resurgence of this, I don't know what happens at that point.
It's not going anywhere. We talked about this. It's not going anywhere. There's not going to be a vaccine or a cure for a while. You have to just let people adapt, and people will adapt. Business is going to change. Certain businesses and certain industries might become almost non-existent or go completely out of business. But that's the way it is. I mean, what
Yeah.
are you going to cruise? Like, this is just an example. I don't know that anything's happening, but the cruise line industry, all right? No one might want to go on cruise anymore. That type of vacation might, I mean, maybe you go from however many companies there are to whatever size industry that is, 2 billion. I have no idea, right? To it goes down to a $2,000 industry with one company, or maybe it just goes completely out. But so be it. That's evolution. That's progression, and ultimately, it's a good thing. Instead of just bailing them out
Yep.
or assuming that everyone's going to go back to normal. I don't know.
So what do you think about, well, first of all, let's talk about real estate here.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's talk about real estate and business. Um, Coming into today, and this is off the top of my head, I don't have the exact numbers, but as far as new listings were concerned in Nassau and Suffolk County, I think we were somewhere around 3,500 new listings in 2019 in the month of April.
Mhm.
Okay. Up until today or yesterday. And I believe we're somewhere around 850 listings new to market this month in 2020, which is, I think it's like a 70 to 80% write down in new listings coming to market.
Mhm.
Under contract, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I believe it was somewhere around a 60% write down, less than new coming to market. As far as closings, last year as compared to this year, I believe it was a 50% write down. It was something like 1,600 closings last year in the month of April to this point, and there's been like 750 or 800, somewhere in
Mhm.
that ballpark. So, I mean, obviously, for good reason, you're seeing a lot of people not want to list their home. They don't want people in the house
Mhm.
because of everything that's happening with the coronavirus. But what happens moving forward, in your opinion, as we move into summer, where the virus should slow down and should sort of give us the opportunity, give people give people the optimism and and uh, being comfortable with getting their house in the market and letting people in the door.
Yeah. So I think listen, the main message is there's a lot of uncertainty, is no one knows what's going to happen. But if you want to look at a few data points that point to the positive, there's one is the deurbanization we're talking about. I do think, and I see it personally, there's going to be a lot of people wanting to get out of the city
And
and
those
move
people have money, a lot of money.
to Long Island. Yes, well, they're used to paying high rents in the city. I mean, most families who have people in the city with 2 kids, the rent they're paying, you could put 20% down and live in like $1 million house. Obviously, depending on the
More
taxes
than
and some
that.
other
More than
factors.
that,
Yeah, it depends on
probably.
the taxes, but for the same rent, you can live in like around $1 million house. So I think on the positive side, you're gonna see buyer demand be there because you have people wanting to get out of the city, whether it's people that want to get out because they don't want to live there, or just young families that had always planned on moving out, and this is just expediting those plans. I do think you're going to have a buyer pool. I think the other thing, obviously, which has a big impact on real estate pricing, is interest rates.
Hmm.
Interest rates are at all-time historic lows. They're probably going to remain there for the foreseeable
Maybe even
future.
move further down.
Could even move further down. So you have that. So you have buyer demand, you have low interest rates. The other thing is simple supply and demand. Housing is a basic need.
Yep.
So there's always going to be transactions in the marketplace. You're always going to have people who need to sell and who need to buy. But I think from a supply standpoint, we've had over the last few years historically low supply of housing inventory. I think it's going to remain low because people who a lot of people are going to be nervous to sell or feel it's not the right time unless they really need to or have a high want or a high desire to sell. They probably will not because they're not going to want people in their houses. They're going to be nervous. They're going to want to wait things out because uncertainty causes inaction. So I think you're going to have low demand, low supply, low rates. You will have buyer demand. So from that standpoint, I think that we could see in terms of pricing a really strong real estate market. We could see prices remain even or even increase based on those factors. Now, on the opposite side of the coin, there's lending restrictions. Banks where you could, used to be able to put 3.5% down, have a credit score of under 700. A lot of banks may listen and say, we're demanding 20% down. You must have a credit score over 700. So lending restrictions could tighten, which could take a lot of buyers out of the market. You have huge unemployment. You have people without jobs. So not as many people can buy houses. So there's those factors, and we may go into a severe recession because of this, which will obviously cause prices to go down. So from that standpoint, you could see a huge drop in real estate pricing.
Do you think it's going to be very different from like in each sub market? Like, so coming into this, right? If you had a $500,000 house listed for sale, it's sold within 7 days,
Mm-hmm.
and you had 10 offers. Is that going to go away in that market? Because if anybody's going to suffer here, in my opinion, it's the family who makes just enough to live here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it is a very expensive place to live on Long Island. So that middle class family with that, that, let's say the guy who works for the union, he's an electrician, he gets furloughed because they're not allowing certain people on the jobs or too many people on the jobs in New York City. And because he's furloughed and he's sitting on the bench for a few months, his family now no longer can buy anything.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're out of the market, something along those lines. And I think that in the, $700,000 and less market, I think we're going to see that even out more,
Mm-hmm.
in regards to not, there won't be as many buyers out there on the market, which will slow down the absorption rate of homes
Mm-hmm.
in that sub market. When we get to the more expensive market, which was struggling up until this point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because of the salt deduction and all that stuff. I think it's very possible that that market picks up because of what you said, where you're getting these people from the city who are paying $6,000-$7,000 a month in rent for their 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. If you apply that same $7,000 a month, uh, you know, budget to a home, you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at a $1.5 million house,
Yeah.
$1.25 million home with taxes baked in. So is it possible that the high end market picks up with this deurbanization, right? And the lower end market pulls back a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because the jobs aren't there. And that lower end market, we saw a lot of FHA loans, a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
3.5% down, 5% down, 10% down. Like you said, if these banks are tightening up lending restrictions and making you put more money down because they believe the market is going to probably pull back 20%, so they want the 20% down payment.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what's going to happen, then there's a huge buyer pool that is no longer going to be able to get into a home, and they become renters.
Mm-hmm. My best guess is, again, there's a lot of uncertainty. It's hard to predict the future. I think in the short term, so call it the next 3 months, maybe 3 to 6 months, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see, so we're still going to see a lot of transactions in the market. I think initially when everything opens back up, you're going to see all these people who put their life on hold, who shut down. We're going to see that activity flood the market. So I think initially we might not see much of a change within the next 3 months, let's call it. I think 3 to 6 months out, what we're going to see is sellers are going to have to become more realistic with price in all price ranges. I think everyone's, over the past few years, everyone, the stock market was going straight up. Everyone felt the economy was doing really well. There was a lot of confidence.
Yep.
So sellers across all price ranges wanted a premium. in the non-luxury market, under a million, under 800,000, they were getting it. There were a ton of business bidding wars. People can afford those prices, and they were paying for them. In the luxury market, it was much slower because that buyer pool was, they just weren't willing to pay those prices. I think now across all price ranges, we're going to see in the next 3 to 6 months is when you have a conversation with a seller about, listen, we need to be realistic about price here. You know, there's a lot, people are uncertainty. Buyers aren't willing to just spend as much money because they're acting more cautiously.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people are going to get more realistic with price. It's going to be, and then I think because of that, you're going to see a lot of transactions. So I think in the next 3 to 6 months, we see a little dip in pricing, but not much, nothing crazy. Just enough to where buyers feel confident enough to actually still buy the house. Past that, 6 months and out, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with the economy. We'll have to see if all of these bailouts work for the time being and can keep, in my opinion, this bubble inflated where people are confident again in spending money, or if all these bailouts prove to really, not be detrimental, but just not work. And there's really nothing at this point that can keep this bubble inflated, and it's time for it to deflate. And in that case, we're going to see a big decline in prices. But
so I was actually, been listening to a lot of podcasts, and Tom Ferry had on these guys who they've got something to do with their macroeconomic, they're economists, right?
mm-hmm.
And what they're preaching is that this is not 2008, 2009 again, and the reason that they're saying that is there's a lot of data that says that the average homeowner across the country has something like they're only financed like 70% on their home. They have a lot of equity.
That's a good thing.
That's a very good thing.
That was in 2008.
No, in 2008, 2009, nobody had any equity in their homes.
Mm-hmm.
So because nobody had any equity in their homes, once there was a contraction, they just stopped paying their mortgage, and then they had default. Now, I forget the exact number. I think it was somewhere between 60 and 70% equity in their home is like the average equity for the average American across the country.
On the same token, though, what's the number of people that have stopped paying their mortgage right now?
I don't know.
Isn't it like something like over 2 million?
Either way, it's going to be either way based on the numbers. Because here's the deal: people stop paying their mortgage when they owe a lot more than what the house is worth. They just walk away from it. So if you bought a house for $1 million and there's a 30% pullback, it's worth $700,000. And back then they were lending people 100%, 102, 105% loans on homes. So someone who bought a house for $1 million can have a loan for $1,050,000, okay, on the house. And if that house went down to $750,000 in value because of a 25% pullback, they walked away from that house. So that's why there was a lot of defaults in 08, 09, based on what the guy was talking about in this podcast. Today people have a buffer. So even if there is a 25% pullback on that same house, right? Let's say you bought $1 million house and you have a $700,000 loan, and the house pulled back to 780. Let's say the fair market value becomes 780. You're not really going to walk away from it because you still have a little bit of equity.
But on the other hand, so you've sent the numbers to me, but basically what the government has said is people can stop paying their mortgage with no penalties or interest, forbearance for 60 to 90 days. So because of that, I don't know if it's because of that, just because there's no penalties and interest and they're allowed to, they've stopped, or because they've lost their jobs and they can't. It's probably a little bit of a combination of both.
Or some people just taking advantage.
Exactly.
Saying, you know what, fuck it, I'm not going to pay my mortgage because there's 3 million other people across the country who are claiming forbearance. Why can't I?
Exactly. So it's probably a combination of both, but you have record numbers, something like over 2 million, maybe even over 3 million mortgage people who are not
probably
paying their
climbing. It's probably climbing.
But what happens is that money's not forgiven at the end of that 60 or 90 day period. there's a few different options. One is you can restructure your loan. Maybe you had 26 years left on your loan. You're now taking on a new 30-year mortgage, something like that. But if you don't have a job, you're not going to get that mortgage. What's happening in a lot of cases is at the end of that 60-year end date period, you owe the full amount past due. So if
Oh,
your mortgage is
geez.
$4,000 a month, because I've looked into
They
this.
don't just tack on another 3 months.
No, they don't tack on. I've looked into it because obviously we're in this business. We want to be able to inform people, and it depends. It depends on who your mortgage is with. But in most cases, if you can't restructure that loan through a refi or something like that, you owe that money. So you're going to owe, and say you do it for 60 days, your mortgage is $4,000 a month, 8 grand, or 90 days, you're going to owe 12 grand. Now, for most people, if they're out of work, they're not going to have that 8 or 12 grand to just pay. So there's going to be, but like you said, if they have equity in the house, maybe instead of just not making their payments and going into foreclosure, maybe they put it up for sale. So maybe we see a flood of inventory hit the market,
Maybe.
and that's going to drive prices way down. There's so many variables, right? The other big variable is we're printing so much money. Maybe there's massive hyperinflation, and that drives asset prices up.
So when the stock market crashed, when this whole thing started, and then now it's shot back up, one of the theories as to why it's up, because in my opinion, the stock market makes no sense.
No,
There's no way the stock market should be at 24.5 right now. Is it at 24.5? What is it at?
it was at the end of the day, I say right around 24.
I think it's high. 24.534. It's up 433 points. On what? How is it possible that the stock market is up? But one of the theories is that, because as I understand it, the first bailout was bigger than the entire bailout of 2008, 2009.
Yeah, just in the last 60 days.
And there's been a second bailout, and I think a third.
They're talking about a third.
Yeah, and there's going to be a fourth. I mean, so the bottom line is we're going to see inflation because of this. So is 24.5 the new 15? Because if you think about it, we started the 2008, 2009 recession. The Dow Jones was under 10,000. I think it was somewhere around 8.
Mm-hmm.
And a few months ago, it was at 30,000.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we printed less money then. So is the Dow Jones going to go up to 75,000 in the next 10 years, next 5 years? And is that going to push asset prices through the roof? I don't know.
There's so many data points, and there's so many variables where you could really argue this either way. And you can argue it either way with pretty sound just logic and financial knowledge. We'll have to see what happens. I don't know. I think the message is that I'm giving a lot of my clients.
Dude, all I got to say is when the stock market crashed, I was sitting in front of the TV thinking it's going to hit 15. It's going to hit 14. Who knows where it's going to, but to be where it is, I don't understand it at all.
It doesn't make any sense.
Now, let me ask you this, as a team leader, realtor, what are you doing to stay relevant right now?
I'm continuing to work. Well, you know this. We've been working the whole time. Listen, the first 2 weeks, March 15th when this hit, and there was a ton of panic and everyone was trying to figure out what to do, we kind of took a step back. But after that, once April hit, right, we started doing our team calls every morning at 8:30. We get on the phone with our team, just have a quick little huddle, as you were calling it, touch base with everyone, and then we get to work around 9:30, and we just continue with our normal daily routine, which is making calls to clients, etc., and staying in touch, because again, housing's a basic need. There's a lot of people who one is they're just curious about what's going on in the real estate market. So just by staying in touch, they're appreciative of that, and they're appreciative of the information.
Coming from a position of contribution right now, I think is the most important thing too. Giving them those data points that we just threw out. The reason we can throw them out is because we're watching the market so closely, and we know everything that's going on. And I think if you at one time had an intention to sell, and that's something that you want to do in the future, everyone has a different opinion right now, and every article you read has a different opinion, and I think brokers are more relevant today than they've ever been.
A good broker, someone who's actually an expert
market
in
that
their
we
field.
just came out of. I mean, really, a lot of people thought that they could do it themselves, and some did, but that's not what we're headed towards. We're
No.
headed towards something very different. If in times of uncertainty and major pullbacks in the market, number one, well, 50% of licenses will expire. So
Hmm.
you'll see.
Offices are already shutting down.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. You have the real estate agent who's also an Uber driver, right?
Hmm.
But he's an Uber driver and he maybe does 2 or 3 deals a year. Okay. Do you want to listen to that guy now? Or do you want the guy who's transacting a lot every year, living this thing day in, day out, paying attention to the market, up to date on all the trends,
Hmm.
reads up about it, is in the trenches? That's who you want right now.
Pre
So if you're going to sell your house today, are you going to give it to your brother-in-law who's the Uber driver who does 2 or 3 deals a year and claims to be a real estate agent, or are you going to give it to the professional who's doing it every day?
Previously, you could, in the last few years, as an agent, you could not offer a lot of value or not be that skilled or not be a high level professional. And you could, I don't say make a living, but you can make money selling
Yeah, you
real
could
estate.
sell houses.
Now, in what's in the market that is coming, if you're not a high level professional, if you're not knowledgeable, if you're not skilled at what you do, you're not going to make it.
No.
The people who have those three things, the agents who have those three things, are going to rise to the top. The cream's going to rise to the top. They're going to provide value, and they are the ones who are going to remain in the industry. The others just aren't. It's just a fact.
And there's going to be moguls made out of this, meaning the people who keep their head down, work every day, and are truly talented on the other side of this whole thing, they're going to be bulletproof. And they're going to have a name for themselves that they couldn't maybe have made before because there was so much noise in the market.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'll add the last point is agents who are able to adapt in terms of utilizing technology. So a lot of older agents, for some reason on Long Island, there's a lot of older
I think
agents,
it's,
60,
well,
70 plus. Those people who cannot effectively use technology, right? I mean, there's people who just can't figure out a Zoom call or
no.
something like that. They're going to go out of business. This is going to be a changing of the guard. You're going to see a lot of younger professional agents. This is when they're going to start taking over the who have been the last few years those top older agents. They're
Yeah.
just not going to make it, and that's life in general. But
Yeah.
this is going to just expedite and be a catalyst for that process, in my opinion.
Yeah. Totally, totally, totally agree. Couldn't agree more. Um, Yeah, but when it comes to this game, the worst thing you could be doing is disengaging. And if you've been disengaging and watching Tiger King and everything else that the masses have probably been doing, then you're screwed coming out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth of the matter is, you don't know what's going to happen once they flip the switch on, say, June 1st and say, "Okay, you're ready to go." Because there's a good possibility that there's a good possibility that there's people sitting there with contracts signed, ready to go
Mm-hmm.
once that all changes. And then there's people who are still sitting in bed watching Netflix at
I,
the same token.
I think it's a good thing. I've been pretty probably negative or taking the pessimistic side during this, but I, I'm I think this is just progress. It's progression. People are going to adapt. In the end, we're going to change things. The things that are broken and don't work are going to be changed. New systems will be implemented that work. I think we're going to come out of this much stronger, much better as a country and individually.
Uh-huh.
The agents who are adapting and working, it's going to be a good thing. The cream will rise to the top. The people who are positioned to capitalize will capitalize,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. So I think ultimately it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, with regards to, is there anything you recommend? Like, is there one thing that happened during this quarantine that makes you that's been big for you? Any practices?
In terms of real estate, and
Any kind of life change, anything in terms of real estate, business, personal health.
so here's what I'll say. I think yes, the answer is yes. And for me, what it's been is in just being able to look back in hindsight and reflect on what's happened and the whole way the situation's been handled is that people need to start taking more responsibility for their lives. And for me personally, and this is stupid, but I just started. I did a bunch of home projects. I was never handy,
Yeah.
and I built like a built-in bench. I've done
I
some
would say
other
you're a
things.
little handy. You built a deck in your backyard.
Yeah, but I would always, if something went wrong in my house, I would always just say, we got to call someone. But one is like, there's no one to call. And two is I just have the time. And I would just go on YouTube, look up how to do it.
Yep.
And then I would go to the store, buy the right tools. I think that's huge is having, and not just, this is like a metaphor, but if you just research how to do something and then you get yourself the right tools for the job and you have the right tools to do it, you can do it. And for me, I've learned that I'm a lot more self-sufficient and I'm able to be a lot more self-sufficient than I have. And I think that's a good thing. And I think in general, I've learned that, I'm going to take a lot more into my own hands, take a lot more responsibility for my life and what's going on
Mhm.
because I am in control of it.
Yeah.
And it's not on anyone else. Ultimately, it's on me. So that mindset for me is probably the biggest positive impact of what's come out of this is that I feel empowered, I feel capable, and I want to take responsibility. Not that I haven't before, but even more so for my life and my future. What about you?
So for me, the one good thing that's come out of this is I'm spending a lot of time with my kids.
Hmm.
Kids time that I never ever would have been able to spend with them because of how busy we are with all this stuff.
Hmm.
So I have really gotten a chance to see what my wife does on a daily basis. To be honest with you, I appreciate her so much more
Hmm.
because it's rough, boy. They're, I don't know where kids get the energy they get and how it sustains this insane level of energy from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to bed, but they do, and they're a lot of fun, and it's fun spending time with them,
Hmm.
and that's the one big good thing that's come out of this for me.
Hmm.
um, Secondarily, one of the best things I've done during this quarantine, as I've told you, I've been on a spending spree, is I
Hmm.
bought a Peloton. So the Peloton is really good. I highly recommend. It doesn't have to be the Peloton. You got to have something in your house or in your life that allows you to escape and tax your body, because like I said before, one of the biggest things I miss because of this quarantine is the gym,
Hmm.
and getting in there and getting a physical workout in. And once that got taken away, I started running outside, which is really nice. But uh, we're young. I'm 33, but I'm not 21 anymore. I'm not 18 anymore. I used to go for runs outside, easy, no problem. But next thing my ankle hurts, my back hurts. I don't know. Maybe I'm just old and out of shape. Whatever. Long story short, the Peloton it's pretty freaking cool. I can
Hmm.
tell why it's so popular and it's out there. But
So will you go back to the gym
uh
if you
yeah,
get the
I'll
if you get the Peloton, you
listen.
get the hot tub
I'm
installed?
always gonna go back to the gym.
Hmm.
Uh I stopped lifting weights because I don't want because when I lift weights I get too bulky and big. So I I'm all about cardio now, and the Peloton it fills that need. But maybe if I want to get out and go to the gym at some point in the future, but the with this virus and everything, the gym is like
Well, so
the
let
worst
me ask you:
place.
once things open back up, say June 1st, it's open back
No,
up, gyms are open. Are you going back?
nope, no. The gym is probably the worst place to go.
So all right, now let
Maybe
me.
even worse than the supermarket. I don't know about you, but supermarkets have been totally like when I go to the supermarket, I feel like I'm going into a war zone.
Well, let me expand on that. So now June 1st, you're not going back to the gym. There's no vaccine in sight. I mean, are you going back? You're probably not going back to the gym for 6, 12 months. By 6 or 12 months from now,
Will I
have you
have
adapted?
developed?
Has it changed so much where now maybe you have a Peloton, a few other things, and you're just like, you know what?
Maybe.
I love being home. I could do this from home. I don't have to drive 15 minutes to the gym, 15 minutes back, which is a half hour. I can do it from the comfort of my home. It This is so much is going to change because we have the technology and just the resources now to really.
To not have to go out.
It's being home is very convenient. I don't even have but prior to this, I didn't have a computer or a laptop in my house. My kids have iPads. My wife and I have our iPhone, and that we could do everything we needed. If I needed to do something with a computer, I would just do it while I was at the office, which is rarely. I mean, maybe once or twice a month, I'd have to do something on the computer for personal reasons,
Yeah.
right? Now I've got the computer at home because of all this. And I said to my wife, I said, we should just turn this downstairs bedroom into my office. Like, this is great. I can,
That downstairs off the kitchen?
yeah, I don't have to,
100%.
I don't have to be, I don't have to, I could, I could be home more. I could still get the work I need to do done. I could be home with the family more, and I could even be more productive. I could, at night, I can just go down there when everyone's sleeping, work for a little bit, or early in the morning, get some stuff done. And this way, during the daylight hours, maybe I can spend some more time with all of you. So for me, and that happened a while ago at the gym for me. I used to go to the gym. I would have to drive 15 minutes to the gym, 15 minutes back. That was a half hour long. I started going for runs outside. This is a year ago. We started training for the Spartan race.
Yeah.
I started going for 20-minute runs outside, and then I bought a power tower. I do push-ups and pull-ups for 10 minutes. So in the half
And you're
hour,
getting the same.
in the half hour drive there and back, I would get the same workout in it. And I'm not trying to be like a bodybuilder. Again, I just want to stay healthy. So I didn't need to go for the weights. I was able to get the work. So for me, that changed. And I think from a work perspective, it's going to do the same thing. And for how many people is that going to happen?
Dude, the Peloton is insane. First of all, the screen, you load it up, there's a screen and it's a browser. You could sort it by the instructor, the type of class, the amount of time you have to put in, the music that you want. Like you could do like 80s. Like you could do house music. There's high intensity workouts. There's just mountain climbs, right? And then it comes with the shoes that click in, so it's literally like a real bike, like a cyclist's bike. And it has a chest monitor. So you wrap the chest monitor around, it tells you what your heart rate is, and it knows my height, my weight, and everything. And it all ports right to the iPhone, so all the information goes right to my iPhone. You could FaceTime with somebody while you're doing a ride. So if someone else has a Peloton and you're both riding together that day, you could FaceTime each other and do it together, which is really cool. And dude, it's getting my heart rate up to 185 beats per minute, which I wasn't getting at the gym. In the gym, I was getting it to like 175. So it's another 10. I mean, I'm pushing myself much harder. And in 45 minutes, I'm burning around 900 calories. As compared to the gym was like 1,000.
That's a lot of calories for 45 minutes.
Yeah, the gym was an hour. It was a half hour on the Stairmaster, 15 minutes on the bike, 15 minutes on the treadmill, and that would just get me to 1,000. So if you extrapolate that and I did it for like a full hour, you're probably looking at like 1,200 calories in an hour.
I'll make a prediction that in the next 6 to 12 months, you have another 2 or 3 pieces of gym equipment in your house.
No,
maybe
I don't have
even
the room.
the hot tub, and you're not. And if 12 months from now, you're almost never going to the gym. Maybe like once a week you'll go or something, but nowhere near where it used to be.
Maybe. Well, here's another question. This is the good thing about being a real estate agent. If there's hyperinflation in the long distant future and housing prices go through the roof, we're going to make a lot of money. And then you might want to take loans out now if there's inflation because it's going to inflate away.
Well, if you have a fixed payment loan.
Let's say you renovated your house today for $500,000. Let's say you put a second story on it, you renovated it. $500,000 loan today might,
and that's called out a $3,000 monthly payment.
In 5 years, that might be like having $100,000 loan today.
Yeah, well, so with inflation, you're still making that $3,000 payment, but $3,000 5 years from now is with inflation is actually 6,000.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. The world we live in is pretty wild. Pretty wild. But dude, we've been doing this for an hour and a half. It's a good conversation.
Well, it's been a while and there's been a lot to talk about.
I know. I don't believe I have anything else to add. Do you?
No, I could probably talk longer, but we can wrap it up.
All right, guys. As per usual, we are the Pesce Lanzillotta team at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Laffey International Realty. If you have any questions whatsoever regarding anything that's going on, please feel free to reach out. Our number here is 516-888-9711. That's 516-888-9711. Our team email address is info@p as in Peter, L as in Larry -team.com. That's info@pl-team.com. And that is it.
Stay safe, stay healthy, everyone.
Stay safe and stay healthy.